Welcome to Inside Games Daily, the only gaming news channel brave enough to say that if you paid for a game, you should be able to play it.
Woo, hold on, Bruce. Slow down. So, hey, I may not be a big, fancy, highfalutin lawyer for Ubisoft, but that sounds an awful lot like complaining to me.
Oh, I like that southern accent you were doing there for a second.
Should be more French, shouldn't it?
Yeah. All right, bad news, guys. More bad news. Players of the Crew, that Ubisoft racing game, filed a class action suit against Ubisoft over the game's shutdown in November of 2024.
Which is pretty awesome. We love to see it. Little activism there.
Mm-hmm.
Ubisoft responded in February 2025, and recently Polygon got a hold of that response, dug in there, and found some choice quotes from Ubisoft's lawyers.
Oh man, Ubisoft's lawyers, they must have a great day every day, huh? Waking up every day, saying crazy shit, and then going right back to their office.
Yep, double arm stretch over the head, a little mouthwash, slap on some aftershave, crack the knuckles, sit down and just start bashing out how no one owns anything and they should be grateful that they got to play a Ubisoft game for 6 months.
It's almost exactly what they said. Ubisoft lawyer Stephen A. Marenberg says exactly what you fear and expect from Ubisoft lawyers. Lawrence, you should read the quote. It's great.
After making their purchases, plaintiffs enjoyed access to the Crew for years before Ubisoft decided in late 2023 to retire and shut down the servers of the 10-year-old video game. Plaintiffs received the benefit of their bargain and cannot complain now that they were deceived simply because Ubisoft did not then create an offline version of the discontinued video game.
Then they drank their gimlet. And they
Big old jug with 3 X's on it.
I know. Boy, oh boy. Ubisoft's offense most commonly claims that the Crew's box disclosed that the game required an internet connection and that Ubisoft could revoke access, quote, to one or more specific online features, end quote, with 30 days notice.
There you go. Cut and dry. It was on the box. I mean, this is where it gets mucky because I guess it was. Sure, whatever. The plaintiff's original argument was amended on March 18th, further arguing that the Crew's packaging claimed that its digital activation code wouldn't expire until 2099, which kind of implies that the game would be accessible through that runtime.
And so then there are in-game credits, and those are the same as a gift card, which under California law are not allowed to expire. Everyone's credits evaporated when the game shut down, so those expired.
Yep, and out of both of those, they're claiming that some monetary harm was done and that refunds are owed, or at least the Ubisoft has to pay damages. Ubisoft did provide refunds for folks that bought the Crew really late into its life cycle, though, or at least that's what they said. It was kind of challenging to find an exact policy about who got a refund and who didn't.
One player even reported a successful PlayStation refund for the game despite buying it in 2015. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I guess PlayStation customer service cut them some slack. But then I found this report from somebody else who intentionally went out and bought a physical copy after Ubisoft had announced the shutdown. They couldn't return the physical copy because they had activated the code, and Ubisoft said that they could only refund games that had been bought from Ubisoft themselves. So essentially the retailer said, we won't take it back. Ubisoft said it was physical, so we won't refund it. And they were stuck with a game they could only play for 2 months after buying it off the store shelf.
What the hell? Okay. California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a law in late 2024 requiring clear labels on selling mere licenses to content as opposed to, quote, unrestricted ownership interest in the digital good.
Yeah, online stores are not allowed to use terms like purchase or buy, which is fair, but it really makes this whole situation as clearly dystopian as it actually is.
So even Valve adjusted by adding a disclaimer to the checkout process on Steam saying, quote, a purchase of a digital product grants a license for the product on Steam. So going back to our report way back when Ubisoft said, people should get used to not owning their games. This is them, towing that line and drawing really a hard line in the sand and not letting up. And it's really interesting that that Ubisoft keeps rake stepping into this. In my opinion, they're not rake stepping anymore. They're just doing this on purpose because they must know that people are going to report on these ridiculous quotes and then shit on them again.
Yeah, it's a different area, I think. So the rake stepping is bad when it's an informal interview with someone from the press. And yeah, the man in that particular interview, it was the gentleman in charge of getting Ubisoft Plus off the ground saying things like that. Bad call, bad message to send to consumers. But here, when it's in a lawsuit, And the lawyers, by virtue of them needing to establish a strong defense, need to say things as authoritatively as possible, but also as pro-Ubisoft as possible. It makes a lot more sense that that's going to read like some corporate drivel. But it's just tough to hear it in these words. Like, this is how the companies have been operating for years. Not just Ubisoft, by the way. Nearly all of them. It really sucks when the money is threatened and they have to really put fence posts in the ground and be like, no, this is how we operate our business. So we'll have to see what the courts decide. I guess the best outcome here is that Ubisoft does get stung pretty hard, and it exists as a precedent for other companies that making an offline version of your game is cheaper than getting sued in court. Let's hope that would be the best outcome, I think, for consumers, for us that want to play video games forever. I don't know. Do you think that's likely though, Bruce? How do you feel about this?
I was just thinking about that. I don't know if this even goes to trial, right? I mean, like, I feel like Ubisoft probably doesn't want it to go to trial, Lawrence, because there is probably a small possibility of them losing. I don't know about a big possibility of them losing, but there's a small possibility because, generally speaking, even though we all sign those EULAs and all those other licenses before, I would click accept over and over and over on every video game you buy now. Those are all agreements saying this is a digital license. They are all saying that. They're not saying you can play this game whenever you want. It's never that. So we do know, right? We do know. But if there's a common sense judge on a case like that, that's like, yeah, you can't expect people to read 40 pages of an agreement before they start to play a video game they purchased, that they bought with $70. Then maybe this judge says, no, you can't do this anymore. Yeah, either you have to very clearly, like, and I mean, I don't even really know, like, because I feel like they're not doing it very clear right now and saying that this is a license. I think people are mad about that, but I don't think they're very clear about it either. So if maybe they're just like, from now on, we don't call them games, we call them licenses.
Yeah, experiences, services.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, as usual, in U.S. court, it does come down to the judge, and this isn't a criminal trial, so there's no jury. As far as I'm not a lawyer myself. I'm just making some very high-level assumptions here. But yeah, you have to wonder who's the judge on this case, and you have to wonder what is it going to come down to. Probably how conspicuous and clear the disclosure on the box was. How big was the font? How readable was it? Things like that. And yeah, I think common sense will apply in some cases in determining if Ubisoft is liable and for damages and how much. I'd like to believe at least there's some ruckus. That's the first sign, so that other companies, when it comes time to sunset the game, or maybe even from the outset, they set aside some budget to convert it into an offline only product, or they think like they have an offline only switch in the back end. If you start thinking that this might be an offline product someday, then hopefully you can build it with some back end that can just be clicked over. Not a whole lot of companies do that. Nintendo actually has converted some of their mobile games into offline only games since they turned off the services for those, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, it's appropriate time to shout out Good Old Games again. They sell offline installers, DRM free, for every game you buy on their store. So that is very much you bought it, you have unrestricted access to your digital good. But yeah, Steam, if Valve goes away, who knows what happens. Well, we'd all like to hope that Steam has a kill switch back in there somewhere that'll allow people access to all the games they bought over the years. We'd like to believe that. It's a comforting thing to think, so we keep thinking it.
There's no way. By the way, Lawrence, you said digital good. It should be digital service or digital experience. It is not a good, okay?
That's a good point. Here's a brain tickler for you, and this doesn't have to be a crazy deep conversation, but I tend to think, so let's say you're playing a mobile game, you put down $2 and you get yourself some stupid Subway Surfer run tokens or whatever, and you spend that in the game, you see your hat. I am okay thinking that $2 is now in the wind. You have no expectation of permanence there. If the game and the hat go away, whoops, well, you got your $2 worth by seeing your stupid hat. But for me, at least, there's a perceptive difference between accessing an optional purchase inside of a game versus accessing the service completely. And I wonder if there's any distinction there, legally speaking. That would be an interesting thing. Even something like Destiny, you paid for an expansion, that expansion had content in it, and now with the way they organize the game, that content might be gone and unreachable. That doesn't feel good, and it's certainly blurring the line between I bought a hat and I can no longer even play the game I purchased. I don't know where the boundaries are. it'd be nice if there was some objective measure there.
It's a really good question. I actually think your comparison is maybe a little apples to oranges, and not that it's your fault. It's just more of, you said a $2 hat versus a $40 expansion, right? So like, and I want to say that a judge would probably say that that's where the line is. Like when you start to spend $2, $3, $5, whatever, no big deal. Kind of like you expect, you drop $1 on the ground, you'll lose it or whatever. But if you start spending $20, $30, $40, $60, $80 on these things, on these experiences, like Mario Kart World is a perfect example of an $80 video game that, by the way, will not work unless it's online, it sounds like. So this is kind of one of those things where they got to start to draw a line on how much money it actually is, how much money it's taking away from the consumer, because most consumers have an expectation of an experience. If you're spending $40, $60, like there's going to be this cool game that you can play for 20 hours, 30 hours, whatever, unless I guess Ubisoft or Valve just shuts it off, and then you're done.
Creepy. This is why I've ever since Overwatch, really, that game kind of shattered any investment that I could build in a service game, because the game will change out from under you. Like, the game that you enjoy may completely disappear, or the company may decide that it's just not profitable anymore, and then shift everything around. Like, the only destination for a game's a service game is that it gets worse and then goes offline. So it's like, once I realized that, I was like, wow, I just suddenly, it's really hard to buy into anything anymore. Helldivers 2 is doing great though. That's always fun. And I certainly don't feel like already feel like I've gotten my money's worth out of every war bond I bought in that game. Even though it would be tragic if it were to go away. I don't want to think about that.
Well, Lawrence, you've forgotten about the biggest one that hasn't gone away and has only gotten better, Fortnite.
That's a really good point, actually. Investment in skins is kind of like, yeah, if you have an old legacy skin, everybody thinks you're the coolest guy. You just got to pick the winning team, I guess, which is why people get so obsessed with numbers, I think, at the outset of a game.
All right, let's move on to, because we say this a lot, and we really mean it, Inside Games is on your side.
Right. We got to scrape together those pennies because they're taking away our games. But luckily, especially if you're on PC, you can get a lot of them for free every week. This week on Amazon Prime, you can get Minecraft Legends on Xbox and PC for free, Mafia 3 Definitive Edition, Dreadout 2, Endless Space Definitive Edition, and more. There's also all the old, there's like Deus Ex, Invisible War, some old classics in there. You know, it's air quotes free as long as you have Amazon Prime, but there you go scoop them up.
Also, Lawrence, this is hot off the presses. I'm checking my email right now. Did you know that crime boss Rockay City is going to be free on Epic Games? I think it's also on Game Pass, and then I believe PlayStation Plus members as well. So Crime Boss Rockay City will be free, I think, between April 10th and 14th or something like that.
Beautiful. Check it out. It's a shame that they didn't do next weekend, because Crime Boss is a very good April 20th kind of game. You know what I mean? Easter, I guess. That's what I was referring to. But yes, check out Crime Boss Rockay City. It's an oddball game, very campy, but a lot of fun. Also free this week on Epic Games, you can get Arcade-ageddon, River City Girls, the beat-em-up follow-up to River City Ransom, and Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms, which is kind of like a turn-based card Dungeons & Dragons game. And then final shout-out, I'd mentioned this a few Inside Games ago, but Blue Prince is out today on Game Pass and PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium tiers. Ooh, doing these shout-outs is getting more complicated as the years go by, but yeah, Blue Prince looks really, really charming. It's been getting incredible reviews, a lot of Game of the Year buzz already. So if you're a subscriber to either of those platforms, please check it out, and maybe just look at it if you don't. Maybe. Might be your kind of thing.
We'd also like to shout out our Inside Games patron of the day, who supports us on our Patreon every single month, Sherwin Sanchez, who really only ever paid for games as a service games with wooden nickels. Nobody knows what those are.
Yeah. I like making dated references no one gets. It reminds me of the cartoons I used to watch growing up.